The morning started like any other at New Seoul Spaceport. Kong Minji wiped the grease from her hands with an old cloth as she watched the massive cargo ships land on the distant platforms. At 23 years old, she had been working in her father's repair shop for 8 years. Her small hands could reach places that bigger mechanics could not. Her sharp eyes could spot problems that others missed. The repair bay smelled of engine oil and hot metal. Minji loved that smell. It meant work was being done. It meant ships were flying again. She had just finished fixing a broken fuel pump on a Terran transport when the ground began to shake. At first she thought it was just another heavy cargo ship landing, but the shaking grew stronger. Tools fell from workbenches. Warning sirens began to wail across the spaceport. Mingi ran outside and looked up at the sky. A massive ship was falling toward the emergency landing pad. It was not landing. It was crashing. The ship spun slowly as it fell, trailing black smoke and sparks. Minji had never seen anything like it. The hull was smooth and silver, covered in strange patterns that seemed to glow even through the smoke. This was no human ship. The crash was terrible. The ship hit the landing pad with a sound like thunder. Metal screamed against metal, concrete cracked and split. A wave of heat rolled across the spaceport as emergency crews raced toward the wreckage. Minji's father, Kong Doyen, appeared beside her. His face was serious as he watched the smoke rise from the crash site. "That's a Valorian ship," he said quietly. "I've only seen pictures in the technical manuals." Mingi stared at the wreckage. She had heard of the Valorians but had never seen one of their ships up close. They were supposed to be the best engineers in the galaxy. Their ships were said to be perfect, never breaking down, never needing repairs. Yet here was one of their ships, broken and smoking on their landing pad. Emergency crews surrounded the wreck within minutes. Fire suppression foam covered the hot metal. Medical teams stood ready with equipment designed for alien biology. Everyone waited to see if anyone had survived the crash. The ship's airlock hissed open with a sound like escaping steam. Smoke poured out, followed by a tall figure in elegant robes. The alien was humanoid but taller than any human, with pale blue skin and silver eyes. His robes were made of fabric that seemed to shift colors in the light. Even from a distance, Mingi could see the alien's anger. He moved with sharp, quick gestures as he spoke into a small device. His voice carried across the landing pad, speaking in heavily accented English. "This is unacceptable," the alien shouted. "My ship is ruined. My schedule is destroyed. Where is the Valorian repair facility on this backward planet?" Captain Lee, the human in charge of spaceport emergency services, approached the alien carefully. "Sir, I'm Captain Lee. Are you injured? Do you need medical attention?" The alien looked at Captain Lee like he was something unpleasant stuck to his shoe. "I am Veltar Quinn. I do not need help from humans. I need proper Valorian engineers to repair my ship." Captain Lee remained polite despite the alien's rudeness. "Sir, there are no Valorian repair facilities on Earth, but we have excellent mechanics here who work on alien ships every day." Veltar laughed, but it was not a kind sound. "Humans working on Valorian technology. You might as well ask children. To repair a quantum computer, your primitive tools and limited understanding would only make things worse." More aliens began emerging from the ship. Most looked shaken but uninjured. They gathered around Veltar speaking in their own language. Mingi noticed that they all wore expensive-looking clothes and jewelry. These were not ordinary travelers. Doyen stepped forward. "Excuse me, but I run the largest repair facility at this spaceport. My team has 40 years of experience with alien technology. We've worked on ships from dozens of different species." Veltar turned his silver eyes toward Doyen. "And I suppose you think your little human workshop can handle Valorian quantum drive systems, technology that your species cannot even understand." Doyen's face reddened, but he kept his voice calm. "We've repaired quantum drives before, different models, but the basic principles are similar across species." "Basic principles," Veltar repeated, his voice full of scorn. "There is nothing basic about Valorian engineering. Our ships are masterpieces of technology that evolved over millions of years. Your species has barely learned to leave your own planet." Mingi felt anger rising in her chest. She had spent years learning about alien technology. She had studied quantum mechanics and hyperdrive theory. She had repaired systems that their original builders said were impossible to fix. This arrogant alien knew nothing about human capabilities. Veltar continued his speech to anyone who would listen. "The nearest Valorian repair ship will arrive in 3 months. Until then, I will not allow any human to touch my vessel. I would rather wait than risk further damage from incompetent primitives." One of his companions, a shorter Valorian with nervous movements, whispered something in his ear. Veltar's face grew darker. "What do you mean the consortium meeting cannot be delayed? I must be there in 2 weeks or the vote will proceed without me." The nervous Valorian whispered again. Veltar's silver eyes widened. 40 billion credits. They plan to offer 40 billion for my mining rights. He began pacing back and forth, his elegant robe swirling around him. Minji watched as the situation became clear. This arrogant alien was not just a tourist. He was a businessman facing a crisis. He needed his ship repaired quickly, but his Pride would not let him accept human help. Sir, Captain Lee tried again. Our mechanics really are very skilled. Perhaps if you would just let them examine the damage. Never, Veltar snapped. I would sooner walk back to Valoria than trust human hands with my ship. Your species has contributed nothing to galactic technology. You are consumers, not creators. Minji could not stay quiet any longer. She stepped forward, ignoring her father's warning hand on her arm. Your quantum drive matrix is destabilized, she called out. Every head turned toward her. Veltar stared at the young human woman who had dared to speak. What did you say? Minji's heart pounded, but she continued. Your ship's quantum drive. The crystalline matrix is fractured. That's why your hyperdrive failed. The quantum field couldn't maintain coherence. Veltar's face showed complete disbelief. Impossible. You could not possibly understand Valorian quantum technology well enough to diagnose such a problem. The scorch marks on your hull show the pattern of quantum field collapse, Minji explained. The way the metal twisted near your engine ports indicates harmonic resonance failure. Your safety systems shut down the drive before it could explode, but the matrix is definitely cracked. The spaceport fell silent. Even the other aliens stared at Minji in surprise. Veltar's mouth opened and closed several times before he found his voice. He examined my ship for 30 seconds and claimed to know what is wrong with it. Minji shrugged. I've been working on quantum drive since I was 15. The symptoms are pretty obvious if you know what to look for. Veltar's face turned a darker shade of blue. His silver eyes flashed with anger and something else. Something that might have been fear. Veltar stared at Minji for a long moment. His silver eyes narrowed as he tried to understand what had just happened. No human should know anything about Valorian quantum technology. Yet this young woman had diagnosed his ship's problem in seconds. You are guessing, he said finally, making lucky guesses based on obvious damage. Minji crossed her arms. The quantum matrix fracture started in the third harmonic layer. That's why your ship shook for the last 3 jumps before it finally failed. Your engineers probably told you it was normal stress, but they were wrong. Veltar's face went pale blue. Minji was exactly right. His ship had been shaking during hyperspace jumps for weeks. The Valorian engineers at his last stop had assured him it was nothing serious, just normal wear that could be fixed during routine maintenance. How could you possibly know that? He whispered. Because I can see the stress patterns in the metal, Minji replied. The way the hull bent during the crash shows exactly how the quantum field was failing. Doyen stepped up beside his daughter. Minji has a gift for seeing what others miss. She's been fixing impossible problems since she was a teenager. Veltar shook his head violently. No. I will not believe that a human child knows more about Valorian technology than Valorian engineers. It is impossible. The nervous alien who had been whispering to Veltar earlier approached carefully. Sir, perhaps we should at least listen to what she has to say. Time is running short. Silence, Kefren. Veltar snapped. I will not be lectured by primitives about technology they cannot comprehend. But Kefren looked worried. Sir, the consortium meeting is in 13 days. If the mining rights vote happens without you, ... Veltar's expression grew darker. Minji. They could see the conflict in his face. He needed his ship fixed, but his pride would not let him accept human help. News crews began arriving at the crash site. Reporters from several species set up cameras and recording equipment. Word was spreading through the spaceport that a Valorian ship had crashed, and the alien owner was refusing human assistance. Captain Lee tried to manage the situation. Sir, perhaps we could move this discussion to a private area. No. Veltar said loudly. Let everyone see what passes for engineering expertise among humans. He pointed at Minji. This child thinks she understands Valorian quantum technology better than our master engineers. More aliens gathered to watch the spectacle. Some laughed at the idea of a human repairing a Valorian ship. Others looked curious about what would happen next. Veltar's pride took control of his judgment. Very well, he announced to the growing crowd. I will make this interesting. If this human thinks she can repair my ship, let her prove it. The crowd grew quiet. Even the reporters stopped talking. I challenge you, Veltar said, pointing at Minji. Repair my ship within 2 weeks. If you succeed, I will pay you 10 million galactic credits. The crowd gasped at the enormous sum. But when you fail, you will publicly admit that human technology is primitive compared to Valorian engineering. Minji felt her heart racing. 10 million credits was more money than her family could earn in 50 years. But the challenge was about more than money. It was about proving that humans deserved respect in the galactic community. Kefren grabbed Veltar's arm. Sir, please reconsider. This is not wise. Veltar pulled away. I have spoken. The challenge is made. Doyen looked worried. Minji, you don't have to accept this. His ship might be impossible to repair. But Minji was already thinking about the quantum drive problem. She could see the solution forming in her mind. It would require creativity and some techniques that Valorian engineers probably never considered, but it could work. I accept your challenge, she said clearly. But I have one condition of my own. Veltar raised an eyebrow. You dare to add conditions to my generous offer when I fix your ship, Minji said. You will also fund the construction of a human-alien engineering academy here on Earth, a place where both species can learn from each other. The crowd murmured with excitement. This was no longer just about one ship. It was about the future of human-alien cooperation. Veltar laughed coldly. When you fail, not if, but very well. I accept your impossible condition for your impossible task. He turned to address the crowd and news cameras. Let all the galaxy witness this moment. In 2 weeks, everyone will see the difference between advanced Valorian engineering and primitive human attempts at technology. A reporter from the Galactic News Network pushed forward. Mr. Veltar, are you certain about this challenge? Human mechanics have successfully repaired alien ships before. Cargo ships and passenger transports, Veltar replied dismissively. Simple technology that any species could understand. My ship contains quantum systems that humans have never even seen before. Another reporter turned to Ming. Miss Kong, do you really think you can repair a ship that Valorian engineers say is impossible to fix? Minji looked at the smoking wreckage of the elegant ship. Every problem has a solution. Sometimes you just need to look at it from a different angle, Veltar snorted. Different angles will not repair quantum crystalline structures. Only proper Valorian techniques and materials can fix what is broken. We'll see, Minji said quietly. The crowd began to disperse, but the news crews remained. This story would spread across the galaxy within hours. A young human woman had accepted an impossible challenge from one of the richest aliens in known space. Kefren approached Mingi as Veltar walked away. Miss Kong, I hope you understand what you have gotten yourself into. That ship contains technology that most Valorians do not fully understand. Mingi smiled. Then maybe it's time for a fresh perspective. As the sun set over New Sol spaceport, Minji stood looking at the damaged ship that would either make her famous throughout the galaxy or prove to everyone that humans were not ready for advanced technology. She rolled up her sleeves and headed toward her father's workshop. She had 2 weeks to do the impossible, and she was already forming a plan. Mingi began her work before dawn the next morning. She arrived at the crash site carrying a toolbox that had belonged to her grandfather, filled with instruments both human and alien. The security guards let her through after Captain Lee gave permission for her to examine the ship. The Stellar Crown looked even more impressive up close. Despite the crash damage, Minji could see the elegant design that made Valorian ships famous throughout the galaxy. Every line was perfect, every surface smooth as glass. But beauty meant nothing if the ship could not fly. She climbed inside through the damaged airlock. The interior was like stepping into a palace. Soft lighting came from walls that seemed to glow from within. The floors were made of some kind of crystal that felt warm under her feet. Everything was designed for beings much taller than humans. Mingi made her way to the engine room, following the schematic she had downloaded from the spaceport's technical database. What she found there made her whistle softly. The quantum drive was even more complex than she had expected. The main drive core was a sphere of crystal nearly 2 meters across, suspended in the center of the engine room by fields of energy. The smaller crystals surrounded it in perfect geometric patterns. The whole system hummed with power even though the ship was not running, but Mingi could see the problems immediately. Hairline cracks ran through the main crystal. Some of the smaller crystals had gone dark. The energy fields flickered and sparked. This was not just crash damage. The system had been failing for a long time. She spent the first day just taking measurements and making notes. Every few hours Veltar would appear to watch her work, always with a smug expression on his face. Finding it more difficult than you expected, he asked on his 3rd visit. Minji did not look up from her instruments. I'm learning how your engineers think. It's interesting. What do you mean by that? Minji pointed to a section of the drive where multiple crystal arrays connected in a complex pattern. See how they solve the harmonic resonance problem. They added more crystals to absorb the extra energy instead of fixing the source of the problem. Veltar frowned. That is the proper Valorian technique. More crystals provide better stability. Maybe, Minji said, but it also makes the whole system more fragile. When one crystal fails, it puts stress on all the others. That's why your drive has been getting worse over time. She moved to another section of the engine. And here, they're using 7 different field generators when 3 properly tuned ones would work better. It's like they were so focused on making it complex that they forgot to make it work well. Veltar's expression darkened. You dare to criticize Valorian engineering methods? I'm not criticizing, Mingi replied. I'm trying to understand. Your engineers are obviously skilled, but they approach problems differently than humans do. On the 2nd day, Park Ji-ho arrived to help. He was a young engineering student from Seoul Technical University who had volunteered to document Minji's work. His job was to record everything she did so that other engineers could learn from her methods. This is incredible, Ji-ho whispered as he looked around the engine room. I've never seen technology like this. It's beautiful, Minji agreed, but beauty doesn't always mean better. She showed him the crack patterns in the main crystal. Human quantum drives use synthetic diamonds in matrix formation. They're not as pretty as these natural crystals, but they're much stronger. Word of Mingi's work spread through the spaceport. Alien engineers from other species began finding excuses to visit the crash site. At first they came to laugh at the human who thought she could repair Valorian technology. But as the days passed, their laughter turned to curiosity. Dr. Yen, a Krellin physicist who worked on the spaceport's main fusion reactor, was the first to openly show interest. "Miss Kang," she said on the fourth day, "I've been watching your approach to the resonance cascade problem. Your solution is quite elegant." Mingy looked up from where she was carefully removing damaged crystals. "Thank you. The key is understanding that the cascade starts with timing, not power levels. Indeed, we Krellins face similar issues with our fusion containment fields. Perhaps we could discuss techniques sometime." More aliens began approaching with questions. A Zephyrian pilot asked about engine efficiency improvements. A Thurian merchant wanted to know about reducing maintenance costs. Slowly, Mingy found herself at the center of an informal engineering exchange. Veltar watched these conversations with growing unease. He had expected the human to fail quickly and quietly. Instead, she was attracting attention from engineers across the galaxy. Worse, some of them seemed to think her ideas had merit. On the sixth day, Mingy made a discovery that changed everything. While examining the quantum field generators, she noticed something odd about their design. The basic pattern looked familiar, but she could not place where she had seen it before. She spent that evening in her father's workshop, searching through old technical manuals and research papers. Finally, at 2 in the morning, she found what she was looking for. "Dad," she called excitedly. Doyan hurried over from where he was working on a cargo hauler. "Look at this," Mingy said, pointing to a diagram in a 50-year-old human research paper, Dr. Kim's theoretical work on quantum field manipulation. "Now look at this." She showed him pictures she had taken of the Valorian field generators. Doyan studied both images carefully. His eyes widened as he understood what Mingy had discovered. "The patterns are nearly identical," he said quietly. "Not nearly," Mingy corrected. "They are identical." The Valorians based their field generators on Dr. Kim's research, but they never understood the underlying principles, so they couldn't improve on the design. This explained why Mingy could see solutions that Valorian engineers missed. The technology was originally human, even though it had been developed far beyond its original form. "Do you think they stole the research?" Jiho asked. He had been working late and overheard the conversation. "Not necessarily," Mingy replied. "Scientific papers get shared between species all the time. But it means their quantum drive technology isn't as alien as everyone thinks. The foundation is human science." Armed with this new understanding, Mingy returned to the ship the next morning with renewed confidence. She knew exactly how to fix the quantum drive, and her solution would be better than the original design. But first, she had to decide whether to tell Veltar what she had discovered. The truth would shatter his belief in Valorian technological superiority. It might also give her the leverage she needed to complete the repairs successfully. As she looked at the damaged crystals that needed to be replaced, Mingy made her choice. She would fix the ship first and deal with the consequences later. The impossible task was about to become possible. By the 10th day, Mingy had completely rebuilt the quantum drive's field generation system. Instead of 17 complex generators arranged in the traditional Valorian pattern, she used 3 powerful units based on Dr. Kim's original equations. The improvement was dramatic. The new system ran at twice the efficiency of the original design while using half the power. The harmonic resonance that had been slowly destroying the drive crystals was completely eliminated. Even Jiho, who had watched every step of the process, was amazed by the results. "How did you know this would work?" he asked as they watched the energy readings stabilize at perfect levels. "Because I understood what the original designer was trying to achieve," Mingy replied. Dr. Kim wanted to create a quantum field that could fold space without creating destructive interference patterns. The Valorians copied his work but added unnecessary complexity. Veltar arrived for his daily inspection just as Mingy was testing the repaired navigation system. He stopped in the doorway when he saw the clean energy readings on the diagnostic display. "What have you done?" he demanded. "I fixed your quantum drive," Mingy said simply. "The field generators are now operating within optimal parameters. The crystal matrix is stable. Your ship can make hyperspace jumps without any risk of cascade failure." Veltar stared at the displays in disbelief. The readings were better than his ship had shown even when it was new. "This is impossible. You cannot have repaired quantum technology with primitive human methods." "I didn't use primitive methods," Mingy replied. "I used advanced human methods that your engineers never learned." She turned to face him directly. "Veltar, we need to talk privately. There's something important you need to know about your ship." Kefren, who had been watching nervously from the corridor, stepped forward. "Sir, perhaps you should listen to what she has to say." Veltar's pride warred with his curiosity. Finally, curiosity won. "Very well, speak." Mingy took a deep breath. What she was about to say would change everything. "Your quantum drive technology is based on human research from 50 years ago. The field generation equations, the crystal matrix design, even the harmonic suppression methods, they all come from work done by human scientists." The engine room fell silent except for the quiet hum of the repaired systems. "That is absurd," Veltar said, but his voice lacked conviction. Mingji pulled out her tablet and showed him Dr. Kim's original research paper alongside detailed scans of his ship's systems. Look at the mathematical equations. They're identical. Your engineers took human theoretical work and built upon it, but they never fully understood the underlying principles. Veltar studied the evidence with growing horror. The similarities were undeniable. Equations that he had been taught were ancient Valorian wisdom were clearly derived from human scientific papers. This cannot be true, he whispered. It explains why I could see solutions that your engineers missed, Mingi continued, gently. I wasn't looking at alien technology. I was looking at advanced applications of human science. The foundation was familiar, even if the construction was different. Kefren moved closer to examine the tablet screen. His face went pale as he recognized the equations. Sir, she's right. These are the base formulas we use for all quantum field calculations. Veltar sank onto a nearby maintenance platform, his elegant robes pooling around him. His entire worldview was crumbling. Everything he had believed about Valorian technological superiority was built on borrowed human knowledge. How long have you known? He asked quietly. I suspected it when I first examined your drive, Mingi admitted. But I wasn't certain until 3 days ago. I spent a whole night going through old research papers to confirm it. Why didn't you tell me immediately? You could have used this information to humiliate me publicly. Mingi sat down across from him. Because humiliating you wouldn't help anyone. My goal was to fix your ship, not to hurt your feelings. Veltar looked around his beautiful engine room with new eyes. So this masterpiece of Valorian engineering. It is actually an inferior copy of human work. Not inferior, Mingi corrected. Different. Your engineers took the basic concepts and developed them in ways that Dr. Kim never imagined. The crystal technology, the energy storage systems, the elegant integration. That's all Valorian innovation. But the foundation came from human theoretical physics. Outside the ship, word was spreading that Minji's repairs were nearly complete. More reporters had arrived at the spaceport. Representatives from major engineering firms were requesting meetings. The story of the human who fixed an impossible Valorian ship was becoming galactic news. But inside the engine room, 3 people grappled with a truth that would change interstellar relationships forever. What do I do now? Veltar asked. If this information becomes public, it will destroy everything my people believe about themselves. Maybe that's not a bad thing, Mingi suggested. Believing you're superior to everyone else made you miss obvious solutions to problems. What if instead of trying to prove you're better than other species, you worked with them? Kefren nodded eagerly. Sir, imagine what we could accomplish if we combined Valorian crystal technology with human engineering principles. Or if we shared knowledge openly instead of guarding it so carefully. Veltar was quiet for a long time, processing everything he had learned. Finally, he spoke. You said you could have used this information to humiliate me. Why didn't you? Because I don't want to win by making others lose, Mingi replied. I want to win by solving problems. Your ship is fixed now, better than it was before. That's what matters. Veltar stood up slowly, his expression changing as he came to a decision. You have shown me more wisdom in 10 days than I learned in 100 years of business. Perhaps it is time for me to start thinking differently. He looked at the perfect energy readings on his ship's displays. Tomorrow, when you demonstrate that my ship is fully repaired, I will honor our agreement. But I want to do more than just pay you and build your academy. What do you mean? Mingi asked. I mean it's time for the galaxy to learn that cooperation produces better results than competition. Your repairs didn't just fix my ship, they improved it beyond anything Valorian engineers achieved alone. That's a lesson worth teaching. As they prepared to leave the ship, Veltar turned back to Mingi. You gave me a choice about how to handle the truth about my technology. You could have destroyed my reputation, but instead you offered me a chance to learn and grow. Tomorrow I will make the same choice for my entire species. The revelation was complete, but the real transformation was just beginning. The morning of the final demonstration arrived with clear skies and crowds of spectators. News crews from across the galaxy had gathered at New Sol Spaceport to witness the outcome of the impossible challenge. The betting odds heavily favored Veltar. With most aliens convinced that no human could repair advanced Valorian technology, Mingi stood beside the fully repaired Stellar Crown, feeling nervous for the first time in 2 weeks. The ship looked magnificent. The hull gleamed like new, with no trace of crash damage. But the real test would come when Veltar tried to start the engines. Veltar emerged from the Spaceport Administration building, walking slowly toward his ship. He had spent the night thinking about everything Mingi had taught him. Today would mark either his greatest humiliation or his chance at redemption. The crowd fell silent as he approached the ship. Reporters pushed forward with cameras and recording equipment. Captain Lee announced that the demonstration would begin shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, Veltar said, his voice carrying across the landing pad. 2 weeks ago, I crashed my ship and declared that no human could repair it. I was wrong about many things that day. He looked directly at Mingi. This young woman has not only repaired my ship but improved it beyond anything I thought possible. The quantum drive now operates at efficiency levels that exceed factory specifications. The navigation system responds faster than ever before. The power consumption has been reduced by 40%. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the crowd. These improvements seemed impossible, even to experienced engineers. But more importantly, Velta continued, she has taught me that cooperation, it achieves better results than competition. She could have humiliated me publicly, but instead she chose to help me learn and grow. He activated a remote control device. The Stellar Crown's engines came to life with a deep, musical hum. The sound was different from before, smoother, more harmonious. Energy readings appeared on public displays, showing perfect stability across all systems. The crowd gasped as they saw the numbers. Even aliens who knew nothing about engineering could see that something extraordinary had happened. Velta entered his ship and took the pilot's seat. Through the open airlock, everyone could hear him running through the pre-flight checklist. Every system responded perfectly. The quantum drive spun up to full power without a single fluctuation. All systems operating at optimal parameters, he announced. Beginning flight test. The Stellar Crown lifted off the landing pad with grace. That made it look like it was floating on air. It climbed steadily into the sky, then suddenly accelerated to impossible speeds. In seconds, it was just a silver dot against the blue sky. Jiho tracked the ship on his instruments. He's testing the hyperspace drive, he reported excitedly. Energy buildup is perfect. No harmonic distortion at all. A flash of light marked the ship's jump to hyperspace. 3 minutes later, another flash announced its return. The Stellar Crown descended smoothly to the landing pad, its engines singing with perfect harmony. Veltar emerged from the ship with a smile that transformed his entire face. The repairs are flawless, he announced. Miss Kang has accomplished what I said was impossible. The crowd erupted in cheers. Human spectators celebrated their species' vindication, while many aliens looked shocked by what they had witnessed. But Veltar was not finished. I have an announcement to make, he said, raising his hands for silence. What Miss Kong achieved was not done through human primitive methods, as I claimed. It was done through human advanced methods that we Valorians never learned. He gestured to the ship behind him. Our quantum technology is based on human research from 50 years ago. We took human theoretical work and built upon it, but we never fully understood the principles behind it. That is why human engineers can see solutions that we miss. The revelation sent shockwaves through the crowd. Reporters shouted questions. Alien engineers looked stunned. This was the biggest story in galactic science in decades. I am not ashamed to admit this, Veltar continued. I am grateful to learn it. For too long, my people have believed that we were superior to all other species. This belief made us blind to opportunities for learning and cooperation. He turned to Mingyi. Miss Kong, you have earned your payment of 10 million credits. But, more than that, you have earned my respect and the respect of anyone who values knowledge over pride. He produced a credit transfer device and formally transferred the enormous sum to Mingyi's account. The crowd cheered again as the transaction was confirmed. I also honor my commitment to fund your engineering academy, Veltar said, but I want to propose something more ambitious. I want to establish a galaxy-wide initiative for sharing technological knowledge between all species. The announcement created even more excitement. Representatives from dozens of species began approaching Veltar with questions and offers of cooperation. Dr. Yentha, the Krellin physicist, stepped forward. Mr. Veltar, the Krellin Science Council would be honored to participate in such an initiative. We have much to learn from both human and Valorian methods. More species representatives joined the conversation. The Zephyrians offered their expertise in atmospheric flight dynamics. The Thurians proposed sharing their knowledge of efficient cargo handling systems. Within an hour, the foundation of an interspecies technology consortium was taking shape. Mingyi found herself at the center of it all, suddenly famous throughout the galaxy, but she was more interested in the technical discussions than the fame. Engineers from different species were comparing notes and sharing ideas. Problems that had stumped individual species for years were being solved through collaborative thinking. 3 months later, the new Soul Engineering Academy opened its doors to students from across the galaxy. Mingyi served as the first human director, working alongside alien colleagues who had once dismissed her species as primitive. The Academy's first project was a new type of quantum drive that combined human theoretical knowledge, Valorian crystal technology, and Krellin power systems. The result was a propulsion system that was faster, more efficient, and more reliable than anything any species had achieved alone. Veltar returned to his homeworld not as a failed businessman but as a visionary who had launched a new era of cooperation. His company thrived by adopting collaborative engineering principles. The mining rights he had been so worried about losing became the foundation of a joint venture that benefited multiple species. The challenge that had begun with arrogance and prejudice had transformed into something beautiful, proof that different species working together could achieve more than any of them could accomplish alone. 6 months after the crash, Mingyi received a message from Veltar. His latest ship, built using the collaborative principles she had taught him, had just set a new galactic speed record. But more importantly, his engineering teams now included members from 12 different species, all working together to push the boundaries of what was possible. The transformation was complete. The galaxy had learned that cooperation was stronger than competition, that sharing knowledge was better than hoarding it, and that sometimes the most profound changes came from unexpected places. In her workshop at the academy, surrounded by students from dozens of worlds, Mingy smiled as she worked on her latest project. The future of galactic engineering was brighter than ever. And it all started with one simple truth. Every problem has a solution if you're willing to look at it from a different perspective.